Warning. This podcast is about to open the sealed section of spirituality. Hey you, yeah you, we see you, you divine human being.
And we are calling you to come home.
We are ready to talk about the real shit. We're going to get real about life as a divine human being.
The good, the not so great, spirituality and taboo. Divinely Human is the podcast that's all about what it means to be human in a spiritual context.
We know it's not just about being spiritual, it's about being human too.
And that means changing poopy nappies and channeling angels.
Sometimes even at the same time. It's time for us to stop making other people's noise our own soundtrack of life.
Let's make some waves together so that we can all ride them together and create deep resonance, a sense of home in this crazy world.
Pour yourself a coffee
Or a glass of wine if that's your potion.
and sit down with your new favorite spiritual sisters
As we go on a journey together into what it means to be
a divine human being.
on this spiritual journey.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Divinely Human podcast. I am Tanita
And I am Aleisha.
and we're so grateful to have you back for another episode. I know the last couple of weeks I've gotten the episodes mixed up, so I'm going to learn my lesson to not repeat the episode number because it's confusing the fuck out of me. But here we are, and I'm really happy to be here tonight. We are recording. I turn into a pumpkin after 8 p.m, so you'll see me yawning a lot. We are both on the same wavelength, both wearing black, lavender backgrounds. So I'm interested to see what comes through tonight.
Yes, me too. Me too. I've been looking forward to this. We had a little break because you went away.
Yeah.
So we are back into it and I'm very excited and I missed you dearly. And I don't think you can ever take another holiday because I didn't know what to do with my life.
Don't worry, I didn't know either. I was like, what do I look forward to in my week if not the Divine Human podcast and chatting with Aleisha? And since I got back, I kid you not, we've been messaging each other like 20 times a day.
No, I feel like such a pest as well.
No, you're not. Ah, so funny. I love it, truly.
Yeah, so do I. So don't ever get sick of it.
If I do, I just won't reply anyway. So
You ghost me.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. Excuse me. I am really looking forward to diving in tonight into something a little bit lighter than the previous few weeks.
We've been heavy.
It's been a heavy time and I feel like it's time to do a beautiful, light sort of and a feeling episode. So we thought that it would be really nice to maybe speak about just navigating, life after a spiritual awakening, and also touching on soul family and I guess soul tribe in a way. I would, really love to speak about how, to find that because I feel like it's so easy to slip into that feeling of being alone, even when you're in a spiritual community. So I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. This is something that I feel everybody in their spiritual journey goes through, that desire to connect with other human beings that are on the same wavelength. And I truly believe it's because a lot of us have come from long lines of being connected in covens and still having that desire to be seen by one another. And so I think it's really beautiful in today's day and age. We can utilize social media to find other humans that are interested in the same things as us and aren't going to judge us for what we're doing. But in the same page, it's really hard to find people because we're seeing so much dispersed all over the world and it can still make us feel isolated. So I guess I just want to normalize that feeling of having that desire to find your soul tribe and know that truly you're not alone if you still feel like there are more soul family connections to be had.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And especially the last few years as well, with everything that's happened on a global scale as well. We've kind of been locked inside for a few years, and pair that with a huge uptick in people finding spirituality during that time, which I feel like it was divinely, like, in a really fucked up kind of way. Like, all of that was supposed to happen because so many people turned to spirituality because they were isolated and they found it. And what happens when you're still and you're just being, you turn within. So anyway, that's another podcast, but yeah, I feel like it is really easy to feel alone in this space, and just in general with society these days. Like, so much of it is, online, and we don't really get together in the real world as much as we should. And I am the first person to put my hand up and be guilty of this.
Same here, sister. You'll catch me like in the corner of my bedroom 24 hours of a day.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I feel like I don't leave this office, which is in my house. Like, yes, it is. It is like very lonely sometimes. And especially, I mean, I feel like when I went through my first spiritual awakening, I kind of did have a pretty good support system. I'm not going to say that I was surrounded by a whole heap of spiritual people, because I wasn't, but the world was definitely a much more social place, like in the real world, which was it was nice. But I really feel for people that are having to move through navigating, spiritual awakening this day and age. It's a lot.
Yeah, it is. It totally. And I found when I went through mine that, I was just so anxious of like coming out of the spiritual closet. There was this period of time where like I knew that this was a part of me, and I knew that this was big and like it was a lot of my identity, but I was shoving it in the corner. And I remember being so afraid, like even to the point where I had to like sit my fiance down and I was like, look, like this is me, and I know it's like not who you met. Like a couple of years ago we had like a big discussion and it turned out fine, but it's that anxiety that you have within you, even just to think like, are they going to accept me? Like, what's going to happen when I fully embrace this part of myself? What will change? And I think that to make that shift, you fully have to accept it within yourself first and totally just let go of what other people are going to expect of you, because then truly you can attract those soulful relationships in from a really beautiful place, rather than just a place of like, I need to be seen so I can be validated. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's it's a lot. It's really scary getting out there and living your truth, what it feels like a very new version of your truth, especially after a spiritual awakening. I mean, my first spiritual awakening led to me separating from my son's father, like my first son's father. So it's a lot. And, that was obviously because I found, like, with my awakening, I felt very empowered and I finally saw my self-worth. So yeah, even though it's really, it is a positive thing when you go through that, navigating it can be really rough and it can cause a lot of shifts. Sometimes it actually feels like your whole world is shattering and everything is changing around you. But what that is, I feel like it's just I don't know, let me know if you agree, but I feel like it's just everything aligning to this new frequency that you have calibrated to.
Yeah, 100%. And like, hats off to you for being able to like be on the other side of that now, because that would have been, I can imagine, a really like tumultuous, challenging period. Even though you did feel really empowered, I can just imagine, like you said, a whole world like literally day to day shifting. So I think that's incredible. And I think, spiritual awakenings can come in all shapes and forms, from like big changing life events to little changes throughout the day and it progressively changing. But I totally agree. Some things you're meant to see slip away. And, it reminds me of this astrologer. Oh, we'll probably share her links down in the comments below, Haley, because we've both been pretty amazed with her lately. Amazed, yes. Obsessed. But anyway, she was saying that like when we're releasing or we're healing deep things in our life, we go through a period of like releasing karma, and that can look like shattering. And that's almost what I feel like happens in that beginning stage of a spiritual awakening. You're releasing so much karma, so much subconscious patterning that prevents you from really stepping into that. And I find that on so many different levels, right? And looking back, I'm like, thank fuck I did it. But in the midst of it, it's hard. It's so hard. It's hard to know what's going to be on the other side. And it's hard to know, like who you're going to be on the other side too. Because that was the big thing for me, my identity shifting. And all I'd ever known was who I was, and I was changing. It's like, what am I going to do now,
Yeah, I remember I remember this really distinct moment when I was navigating it the first time, and I felt like everything was shattering around me. But at the same time, it was such a polarity of feeling like my whole world was shattering, but then also feeling like I was meeting myself for the first time again in a completely different way and seeing myself in a completely different way. And I remember this moment, and I will remember this moment forever. And I was standing in the shower, and my ex had like just moved out. So it was just me and my oldest at the time. And I was standing in the shower. I just put him to sleep. And I was standing there with the water running over my head. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I was like, I am so afraid, but so excited to think about what's going to happen, like just moving forward from here. And I've never felt such, polarity with emotions before all at once, but just feeling so excited about the person that I was stepping into, but so afraid and full of fear about the fact that, I didn't even know who I was. And I will remember that moment forever, until the day that I die, because it felt like that was like like such a peg in the map, like a pin in the map of, where I kind of went off on this new journey. And I'll never forget it. But my point is that it can feel like everything all at once. It can feel terrible, and it can feel scary, and you can feel full of fear. But it doesn't last. I feel like you end up feeling that wave of excitement and a lot of like courageous kind of energy as well. I feel floods in as well when you're sort of just like meeting yourself again, like, oh my God, who am I? It can feel everything is what I'm trying to say. But yeah,
no, it was, I totally agree. I think it all can live in the same room, right? And I was just having this conversation the other day, like it can all coexist. And I think that's such a beautiful aspect about being a human, is like you can hold that polarity and and get to choose out of that where you want to take this. And I'm curious, like, do you think that that pin in the map was like always there? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you think
Like
that,
it was fated almost.
yeah.
Well, I feel like I'm trying to explain this in a way that's like clear and precise, because I want to get it right. But like I really do believe in free will, and not so much like everything is fate.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, speaking of polarity again, I do feel like fate exists. But what I think it is your higher self stepping in and making those decisions. So I feel like what we call like fate or it was meant to be isn't like written, but it's just that moment where your higher self takes the wheel and begins to, drive that, that journey for you and stand at the helm instead of you in that lower sort of like, not knowing what to do, or like, oh my God, like you're finally guided. That's what I feel like was happening. So yeah, I feel like I do kind of agree with you there.
That's so interesting. I love that perspective. See, I hold like a similar but different perspective in terms of I believe that big life moments like that are contracted. And I believe that if free will decides to lead us there and, perhaps over time where we are guided to kind of lean towards that direction, that's kind of my perception around it. But I do believe that key moments like that are either contracted or written. However, doesn't
Yeah.
mean that it's going to 100,000% possibly happen. It's just the most likely event that's going to happen on this timeline. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And what's coming through right now is I just had a thought, and I feel like that moment, that pin in the map moment, I feel like that's probably something that I will explore in another life when I come back and visit this past life in something that I'm doing, when I'm exploring past lives in the future and don't have any recollection of this life. I feel like I probably am going to come back to that point and see where I found my courage and my empowerment and my, that bravery just to kind of keep going and like push into the person that you want to be. I really do think I'll come back to that moment.
Yeah. Just over words here because my mind is like, oh my God, because like there are so many of those moments like throughout all of our lives, right? And it's so beautiful to watch them like interweave and just see how not only it has really influenced your life here and now, not only your kids, but then also like future lives. It was really like a soul evolution. That's what spiritual awakening is. It's an evolution in your soul's ability to fully accept itself and step into its truth. And it's so beautiful watching that just almost like ripple out through all the many like channels of life. I just love it so much.
Yeah, it's almost like as you go through an awakening, you're just collecting the fragments from, a past life that you left there that you were supposed to pick up, but you couldn't because, and this was coming through today as well when I was recording a meditation, a past life meditation, and we were talking about how when, during those times in past lives where you have gone through trauma or things that have been just so earth-shattering, parts of us do flee because they just can't bear to stay. And then in a way, I feel like it's kind of part of the contract, like you said, for that to happen, because then we pick up the pieces in, the lives that carry on from that. We're like, we come back, we're like, okay, we're learning this key lesson now. It's kind of like this beautiful overlapping of lives, how that it's just like all I can see is like all these lives and they're just so interwoven because we get to travel back and collect the parts and learn the lesson when we're not even in that current, incarnation. And it's just so incredibly beautiful to think about. Hey.
Yeah, it really is. And the deeper I get in my spiritual journey, the more I can see the beauty of it. Like I remember right at the beginning, like I remember even from a kid, like watching like shows and movies like Bewitched and like witches and like things like that. And I always said they have to stem from truth because imagination is powerful, but it connects to some form of truth. And I always was like, where does the truth like begin to formulate? But anyway, and so when I started my spiritual journey, don't mind me, just like when I started my spiritual journey, I was like, heard about all of these things, right? Like, and you hear about it. And sometimes at the beginning of your spiritual journey, if you're a little bit of a skeptic, you question it. And I remember questioning the ability to connect with past lives. I knew that there was past lives, but the ability to actually connect with them and receive the memories. And the deeper I go into it, I'm like, the more I can almost like feel it and activate it and heal it. And it's so beautiful to watch this like evolution play out. And I think that's why I love the Akashic Records so much, because it's such a great way of like connecting to them. Um, but yeah, spiritual awakenings are a lot of fun. Like when I look back at that time, I'm like, I never had so much like possibility sparkling in my eyes, like I love that beginning journey.
It is. It's like seeing diamonds.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh. And then being stabbed with them at the same time sometimes.
Diamonds are sharp.
But the funny thing is, you kind of get to that point and it passes.
Yeah.
And you think, okay, I was okay. I made it. It was really hard and I got through it. And it's just, it really instills that faith and that knowing and that trust as well. I find that that's like what really establishes that trust in yourself, is knowing that you've moved through it and you've come out the other side and you feel like you've just found your insight, found your knowledge, found your inner knowing, and you can trust yourself finally, probably for the first time in your life, because we grow up just being, conditioned to not trust ourselves and to be led by something externally. So yeah, it's so beautiful. And then we get to meet like-minded people eventually. Yeah. But I'd love to kind of dive into that a little bit more too, about finding, soul tribe, but also just to really, I feel like I really want to like reiterate as well. Can we normalize having friends that just are not spiritual at all? Because that's
all partners, all family,
That's a thing.
Yeah.
Like my best friend, she's so different to me, but we just, at the same time, we just vibe so hard and we are the best of friends. But I don't sit there and talk to her about spirituality 24/7 when we're together. Pretty sure she's never listened to this podcast. Hi, Christy, if you're listening. But no, I guarantee she does not listen to the podcast. She has no interest. She doesn't ask me about anything spiritual. I don't talk to her about anything spiritual. But we're still best friends, and that's okay, because there's more than just that. And I think that a lot of people can get really down on themselves when they move through a spiritual awakening and they're just not resonating with people around them. And they're like, oh my God, I need to go find my people. Yeah, that's really nice. And yeah, of course, I feel like we should all get out there and try and meet like-minded people. But some of the people that you are friends with, they still serve a purpose, and I still learn so much of her, we don't need to just put everyone in the bin.
Yes. Yes, literally. No, I totally agree. And I found myself in that trap. But I I think that's because I was wanting people around me for the wrong reason. Like I wanted spiritual people around me so that I could be seen, because I felt like nobody around me could see me. And then
Yeah.
exactly when you said that reminded me of when I was reminded of the fact that, hey, still human. Hi, you're still in the human experience. You've still got bills to pay. You've still got people to meet. Like,
We're
you
still on
can't
earth.
fucking connect with angels all day, love. Like, come on. And it's exactly right. And you know what? It's so funny because you still need to be social to like connect with your soul family. Like we forget that too. It's like we just feel like we're just gonna magnetize these people into my life and then it's just gonna be instant connections. Like no, like they're a real human too. And we have social relationships with a lot of different people. So having some like friends in your corner that aren't always spiritual helps you relate to the outer world too, because I want to remind you that, you know, you are here on this journey not only to awaken yourself, but also to awaken everybody else around you if they
Yeah.
choose to awaken. And I think it's important that we don't lose touch. And this is coming from a Pisces soul, okay? Delusion times 1,000. It's important that we don't lose touch with other humans. And yeah, you're so right. Like we learn so much from people, and I think it's beautiful to be able to accept other humans just as they are, even if they aren't spiritual.
Mm. I love what you said about that, about still having that purpose to awaken others. Because imagine if we were that's like just putting yourself in the same room as the same people constantly, or just like, not that we're all the same. We're very, very, very different and can still learn off one another, but we do serve a purpose as well to help raise consciousness. And yes, we're doing that in the spiritual community, but it's also really important to get out there and connect with people, because you just never know when someone is going to spark and they're going to see those, they're going to have those diamonds in their eyes and they're going to be like, oh, I get it. It's so important. It's like a pilgrimage.
Yeah.
In a way.
Say, like, it's also important to know, like, not to push your spirituality on people who aren't awakened yet.
Guys, we're not door knocking, okay? Just knock on people's door. Just wondering if you've ever thought about having a spiritual awakening. Come with me
for $5.99.
We're all meeting up in the woods at 5 p.m. on Sunday. No. Okay. We're not going to push it on people either.
Yeah, literally. Because we know what that feels like. It's not fun. But like, just you being you and doing your spiritual practice and fully committing yourself to this journey is enough to actually feed the momentum of evolution of consciousness just in itself. And like your vibration will bounce off others and, have this beautiful domino effect to people who have signed up to awaken in this life. Like you don't have to actually push or do anything. And I think that's also a really hard lesson to learn. Like for me, in my family, mostly the downright hardest lesson to learn around not being able to control when other people awaken. I'm like, I want to shake the fuck out of you, but I can't, right? And it's so tough.
This used to drive me mental, but not just family members, just people I knew in general. And oh my God, can we now? Like,
like full on Homer and Bart situation, like strangle you.
I still catch myself out. I mean, I'm an impatient Virgo. I'm like, why don't you get it?
Doesn't make sense.
Why don't you get it? That's normal too, to feel that like frustration and impatience with people, but we still have so much to learn off them, and maybe it is like that patience. I know for me it is.
Same.
It's so hard. But yeah, I feel like the only thing you have to do is be yourself. And, those people who are supposed to be inspired or motivated or just enlightened by your energetic field will magnetize towards it, and that will happen, which is so beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. I'm curious, how did you like call in your soul fam, soulful connections? Or did you call them in? Did you like actively pursue it?
Not really.
Really?
No.
Like, fuck that, it's going to come to me.
I mean, I feel like I grew up in a small town, and then also like the town next to that where like all the socializing was done was a bit bigger, but it was still a small town. So
Australia life.
I feel like I kind of just like knew people that like I was aware of who was spiritual in town.
Sound like a hillbilly.
Honestly, it was that small. I'm like, oh yeah, I know she's spiritual. So for some reason, I never really pushed it. Like I didn't actively like seek out these people like a stalker, but they just gravitated towards me. And I kind of just like found, I mean, to be honest with you, a lot of my soul tribe lives in different states and different countries. And I mean, it's wild, but they do. Like, I really haven't, especially after moving to Sydney about 18 months ago, almost 2 years ago now. But I still haven't really connected like in person with a lot of my tribe here because they don't live here. So a lot of that is like here, virtually and, voice noting every day and that sort of thing, which is really cool if you think about it. But also it does make me sad because all I want is just to get together with my soul tribe and just dance under the moon naked with you all because it's just not fair. But yeah, what's really interesting though is that I keep meeting people because we're planning to move back to like a place near our kind of like near where I grew up, like an hour or so. Anyway, pardon me. I've met like a few people virtually, like in my spiritual space here online, in the online space, that actually live there. And I'm like, oh my God, why did I not know about you? How come we've never met before? Like when I was living near there before. So that's a really cool thing to think about. Like when I moved back, like actually being able to like meet up with people and do that sort of thing. But I'm going to be real with you. Since moving to Sydney, I have not felt like this physically alone.
No.
But I feel so supported energetically by my soul tribe, who unfortunately is not here, but it's a weird polarity again.
Polarity seems to be the theme here. That's so beautiful though. I love that like those connections are being made. And I think that just goes to say that like true connection isn't bound by time or space.
Yes.
I love that so much. And
how did it work for you?
For me, I remember doing a new moon ritual, actually. I think I still have the piece of paper. And I was writing down, like, I want to meet soul connections, like, through my Instagram, through my business. And that's when, a couple of months after, that's when I started Akashi Sisterhood Circle. And I met you and, like, the other women. So things like that happened. But as I continue to I don't know, as I continue to grow on social media and like share more about my journey, I actually have people come back from my past who say, like, I've always felt a connection to you. And I'm like, same, but like we weren't on the same wavelength then, but now we don't live anywhere near each other. So funny how things like that work. Hey, but Yeah, I definitely manifested a few connections, but also I'm the same as you. I don't really have anybody in person. I have maybe a handful of friends that I met through my fiance, and like I've taught them about tarot and the Akashic records in person. And that feeling of being in person and like talking about spirituality and like, I don't know, just like doing magic together is so, so beautiful.
Mm.
Definitely calling in more connections like that. I think for me, I know I'm going to meet a lot of people through my business, through my career. So I'm definitely prioritizing in-person connections over the next, 5 years, because I think it's important. But again, it's not always possible. So, I'm so grateful for social media. And I say this with every single person I connect with, like, thank God for social media, because it's incredible that we're able to have those connections, and we're just manifesting a time where we can travel at the blink of an eye and hug in person.
Yeah. Yeah. All I want is a podcast studio with you.
Oh, I know. Same.
Imagine like turning up to the podcast studio together, like hand in hand, walking
Yes.
through the door, with our matching cups.
Same.
It would be
Oh, and I can
magical. Let's
imagine it
manifest
would be
that.
so beautifully laid out with your incredible photo. Oh, I love it. Yes, I
It would
can
be
totally
magic.
see it.
It is so normal as well. I just want to reiterate, and like everyone who may be listening to this as well, please know that it is so normal to feel like you don't have anyone like physically, in your corner, like where you live. That's really normal. And I've had a lot of conversations with people in the community, in the spiritual community online about this very thing, where they've sent me messages and they're like, oh, I just feel so alone. Like, is that normal? I'm like, well, yeah, to a degree, it can be when you're moving through this, and we're not going to you can try, but I feel like it's pretty hard this day and age with life and how fast paced it is. And it's really hard to like try and manifest like a whole community of people in the flesh, like it's really difficult. But I mean, we can try.
Yeah, it's just reminded me of the weirdest thing, and I'm sorry I'm going to bring this up because it's totally going to change the vibe. But
I love it.
I've been down an Elon Musk rabbit hole, guys. And anyway, my fiance was telling me that apparently they've started cloning dogs. And when you said that, all I could visualize was people cloning your community up. But isn't that fucking crazy?
Can we clone you and send one to Sydney?
No, I don't want to be cloned.
So it's freaking me out now. Just the thought of it,
Yeah,
Funny man.
I know. It's weird.
Funny man. I'm yet to watch the doco, but I will.
Yeah.
Do you think that he's got a spiritual side?
Oh, dude. All he talks about is wanting to expand the human consciousness.
Oh, really?
Like, that's his reason for wanting to go into space. He says the Earth is a cradle and we've reached our thinking capacity here. And so to reach that next level in human consciousness, we actually need to leave here, which I'm not sure how I feel about. I don't 1,000% agree, because I really like Earth and I think we haven't mastered our lessons here. We've treated her pretty badly. But it's just interesting that that's his motivation. It's so weird. I feel like with every other human, I feel like I can perceive, I'm a little bit like you. I can kind of feel into their intention, feel into their energy. I can get what they're about. But with him, it's like nothing.
It's a bit clouded, isn't it?
Yeah, it's weird.
Because I kind of started liking him, and then I decided that I didn't like him, and then I'm like, oh, maybe I can like him.
Yeah.
And then And now I'm at the point where I'm like, I feel like it's not about whether I like him or not. I just like to know what he's doing. Because he's just such a strange being. And I feel like there's a motive. There has to be. He's, I don't know, and like, who wants to go live on Mars? It looks like a barren wasteland.
Yeah, no, it's not for me. I will not be signing up to that. No.
We live on this earth with rainforests and oceans and, oh goodness, like trees and grass. Like, why would you want to leave here?
I don't get it either. I don't get it. I really
I feel like he wants to mine it. That's what I think. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think he wants to mine it.
Oh,
that's my suspicion.
I have no idea. And I think this is part of it. Like, I think we just have to be okay with not knowing.
I feel like as well, and for those who are listening to this, I just had an idea, and please send us a DM on Instagram if you like this idea. But I feel like we should dedicate 10 minutes of each episode to like speaking about someone in like pop culture or like a celebrity or something, like, but from a spiritual point of view. I feel like that would be really good. So please let us know, guys, if you're like about that, because I feel like that would be really interesting.
Low-key gonna do it even if you say no, but that sounds so good. I love that idea.
Yeah. Because it's just interesting, and it's stuff that we are exposed to and we hear a lot about what's happening, and it's just interesting to sort of decode it from a spiritual viewpoint and to speak about like the energy in general of what we pick up off people and that sort of thing. So
yes, I freaking love that idea. I'm so down for that, especially because we've been exploring like astrology and the asteroids in astrology. And I know I've been looking at a few like celebrity natal charts and seeing where different asteroids place, and it's so cool. So yeah, I'd be so down to talk about that. I think it's awesome. Because you're right, like the way the world is structured is so crazy, but these people are put into our center of attention for a reason, I find. And it's always interesting to kind of decode that. So yeah, I love that idea.
Yeah, let's add that one to the list. Oh, I feel like this was a really good chat. I feel like it was a really beautiful chat to have. Me too.
I was like, I don't even know when we started recording. I don't even know how long we've been going for. It feels nice though. I feel like we needed this.
Me too. Oh, well, I feel like that's a beautiful segue to say goodnight. So thank you everybody for listening in. You can find us on Spotify, Anchor, and YouTube. I fuck this up every time. At Divinely Human Podcast on Instagram.
Yeah.
And if you want to, find us in person, then you can try that too. Yeah. So we can connect in the real world.
Yes, I love that. Manifesting an in-person connection. That'd be so good.
It would be. Let's do it.
Yay. All right, guys. We'll see you next episode.
Bye.